So now let us prepare in mind, body, and spirit for our service today. This reading today is from Petra Wells and Christian Sorensen, The Realm of Becoming. There's an old story of an apprentice who once asked his teacher how long it was going to take to reach enlightenment. The teacher told him it would take about 10 years. The student then asked, what if he devoted more energy to practicing twice as hard and put twice as much time into the spiritual practices? To which the master replied that it would take 20 years. Instant gratification doesn't seem to work in the realm of becoming. Your spirituality is an evolution. It takes time to integrate awareness into what life gives you to practice with. Your real and relative world is the perfect process to develop your trust in spirit as you. So if you can just now take these words into that sacred place just for a few moments. So how good it is to know that Spirit is right where we are every moment of every day, moving through us, as us, and around us, as we can never be outside of the thought of God. It is imbued within absolutely every cell of our body, this divine power, this wholeness, this perfection that is within each one of us. In the same magnificence of God that divinely orchestrates this service today, I know that we are just open and receptive to hear all that we need to hear in this time, for it is one of God. It is one of love, one of light, and one of energy. And so I know that that same energy moves through this band, through Becky, through all the singers, through Reverend Cece and the Children's Church. I know that everything is just divinely orchestrated here and now. And I give such thanks for this. Thank you, Father, Mother, God, Infinite Spirit, and so it is.
Actually, Kenny, that sad song is absolutely perfect for today's topic.
Thank you.
We're talking about living on purpose. And one of the really difficult lessons of the spiritual path in general is patience. Don't pray for it. God forbid. You'll get what you pray for, right? I think it's especially difficult when we're learning to live on purpose, because we just forget to be patient. We human beings forget to be patient. We forget there's a process in healing. There's a process in growing. There's a process in living. There's a process in everything that we do on the spiritual path. But when we set our minds to something, we want what we want, and we want it now. Unless, of course, we could have had it yesterday, in which case we take it yesterday. But that's just not the way it works. There is a wonderful author you may have heard of, Emmett Fox. He was a divine science minister, spoke to enormous crowds in New York City, and was a wonderful author. And he wrote, if you try to demonstrate something that you're not entitled to by right of consciousness, you can't keep it. People in all walks of life try to demonstrate that for which they do not have the consciousness, and then wonder why things don't work out for them. Many people try to get friends without radiating love. Many are trying to demonstrate wealth with a poverty consciousness. Others want, or with a poverty consciousness, or with the desire to cheat or get the better of their fellow man. Others want a healthy body, but they have not even obtained some degree of peace of mind. You know, what he's speaking to is, we see all the time, people who win the lottery or get a big settlement are usually poor again within a couple of years because they don't have the consciousness of wealth that is required to hold on to that, that they just won. I just talked with a woman this past week, and she said, some people I see have the spirit of poverty. And it's really true. Some people have the spirit of poverty. And wealth is not theirs by right of consciousness, so they can't keep it. Fox's statement, I think, is also another layer of Jesus' teaching. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all else will be given unto you. This is it's like the most powerful, multi-layered thing. If we seek the consciousness first of absolute connection, of oneness with Spirit, when we get there, everything we need or want flows from that. It flows from that. And this is the green edge of our own growth. I think that every one of us spends a lot of time on that edge, trying to really embody who and what we are, to really embody who and what we came here to be and do. To learn, as I put it last week, to live vertically from the sense of openness and wholeness and connection, rather than horizontally from what the world tells us is true or acceptable or doable. If we could only remember that we can never be separate from the source of our lives. It flows through us all the time. If we could always remember that we are one with the source of everything. That's one of those things that we sort of want to click our heels together 3 times and say, well, that makes sense. Okay, I'm there, right? And then we want our whole psyche to change in that moment so that we never wander back to become hypnotized by the voices of the world or the voices in our head that tells us we're not worthy, or how you think you're going to do that, or any of those other things that the voice in our head says. Or the voice of our ego saying, you know, it's not really safe to live a larger life. You better stay small where I can keep things under control. We can't just say, okay, that makes sense. Because as human beings, we don't change our entire psyche overnight unless one of 2 things happens. We almost die. That seems to be a real impetus for people to change their thinking. Or we have one of those stop you in your tracks, absolute spiritual experiences. And most of us never have either one of those, which is, I mean, the first one I wouldn't wish on anybody, right? There are other ways to learn things than almost dying. But what we usually do is remember and forget, and remember and forget, and remember and forget. We do that over and over and over until we remember a little bit more than we forget. You know, we do our affirmations and meditation and spiritual practice for a few days, and then we start to slack off, right? We forget that it takes continued repetition, continued attention, and continued intention to change our whole psyche. We have to keep doing it until the consciousness we seek becomes us. Becomes who we are. And as that song said, we are always becoming on this earth plane, in this body, in this earth suit, and beyond. It never stops. We are always becoming. We're always evolving. We're always growing. We live in this realm of constant evolution and growth, the realm of becoming. And what normally happens is we see what we want in just a glimpse, way far away. Can't really even get a clear picture. And then a little bit later we get a clear picture, but it's still far away. And then we get a clear picture and we walk toward the picture and then turn and run backwards. And then we step into the picture and turn and really run backwards. And then we step into the picture and Finally, we're in it. We are in the picture, and we begin to make ourselves part of the picture, and we begin to put on all that the picture requires of us. We start to take on the characteristics of that elevated, expanded consciousness that at first we just caught a glimpse of. And we do that in small stages too. Our consciousness expands and then contracts a little, and expands and contracts a little. The good thing is, as my favorite Supreme Court Justice ever, Oliver Wendell Holmes, said, a mind once expanded can never contract to its former dimension. So anytime our consciousness expands, it may shrink a little bit, not to where it was, and then it'll grow, and eventually, we get to the point where we can stay in that consciousness. We have made it ours. Bit by bit, we see more. Bit by bit, we know more. And bit by bit, we become more. And then we have the consciousness that's necessary for whatever it is we're seeing to make itself manifest in our lives. It belongs to us by right of consciousness. Mary Manning Morrissey says, you can never get to your dream. As long as you're trying to get to it, it's always out in front of you. You get into your dream, not to it, but in it, by coming from it, by taking on the consciousness of being there already and practicing living from that consciousness. You know, asking yourself, how would a person who lives where I want to go, where I want to be, how would that person do today? What would they be thinking of? What would their attitude be? What would be on their calendar? What kind of things would they be doing? We try to live from that consciousness. And then once we arrive at that place of consciousness, the dream shows up in our lives. And then, of course, we get another one, because that's what we're about. It's a process, constantly. It's a process of becoming, and it goes on forever. It goes on forever. We never reach a place where we're not evolving and expanding. And some people might find that grounds for not pursuing their dreams, because after all, if it's just a process, why bother, right? But it is that wanting and pulling us towards growth that creates the larger consciousness. That's why we have it, I think. That's why we see something, whether it's a new car or a new job or curing disease or ending world hunger, whatever it is. We get into our dreams by coming from them, and it changes us. It gives us a bigger picture of life, a bigger picture of ourselves, a bigger picture of this vital force that lives us. Everything in life is a process, not an arrival. It's a process of constantly expanding our consciousness, which is what the story in the reading is about. I love that little story that the student says, how long before I reach enlightenment? 10 years. Well, what if I spend twice as much time? 20 years. I love that, because it teaches us that the idea of getting enlightenment, if we look at it as a thing to get, we'll never get it. We'll never get it. It's, you know, it's a way of being. It's like in meditation, where you're, you know, all of a sudden you realize you haven't been thinking in 3 or 4 minutes, and you're thinking again, right? In that moment. And so we don't beat ourselves up for it. We just really gently bring our focus back to the breath or the mantra or whatever it is we're meditating on. We don't beat ourselves up, nor can we beat ourselves up for wanting enlightenment. We just remind ourselves that it's not a place to get to. Enlightenment is the process we are all going through all the time. This realm of becoming requires that same looseness of mind and heart that we use when we're meditating and bringing ourselves back to our mantra or our breath. Just gentle attention, gentle attention. And when we find ourselves wanting to arrive so badly or getting discouraged that we'll ever find that picture to step into, just gently return our focus to the process of our own becoming. What's happening today? I don't know about you, but when I'm going to sleep at night and I'm looking back over my day, there is always some place where I have had a little expansion. Maybe tiny, it may just be the tiniest thing, but there's never a day that goes by that that's not happening. And if you start to look for it, you will see it. This process of becoming is sort of like gardening in my mind. You know, if you want petunias, you plant the petunia seeds and then you wait. You wait. You don't go and check digging them up to see if they've got roots yet, because you kill them when you do. You don't go every 20 minutes and say, oh, is it sprouted yet? You just do what you know to do. Keep the ground moist, take a breath, and have some patience. Have some patience. It's a lot like enlarging our consciousness. We have to be very patient with waiting for the spiritual practice to bear fruit. I used to garden a whole bunch. I had a yard in Salt Lake. It was a 1/4 acre, and it was almost all ornamentals. I had very little lawn, just a little bit to break up the rest. Even that hell strip, you know, between the sidewalk and the street, that was planted. I had everything planted. And what I learned from that is it's not the garden, the plants and the flowers that's important. What was important was who I became through the process of gardening. Because every morning I'd get up before the sun, and after I did my meditation, I would go out into the cool of the morning as the sun was just coming up and the birds were singing and it was gorgeous. I went out to tend my garden before I went to work, to, you know, pick off all the dead heads and all that kind of stuff. And it gave me a chance to really look and see the flowers and the leaves and the insects and the soil that are all components of this thing called garden. It gave me a chance to really care for the garden, to really, you know, learn some patience when I was training climbers to climb so that they would show their flowers the best, so that when I was deadheading and pruning and clipping and trimming and all that stuff patiently, because you really can't force a climber. You have to do what the climber wants to do, right? If you're trying to train a wisteria, you have to prune it and tie it and do what the wisteria wants you to do. The garden taught me a whole lot about being patient, about waiting for the plant to show me what it wanted. Sometimes that meant I had to change my plans because I'd plant something and it wasn't happy. So I had to move it to a place where it might be happy. And sometimes that didn't work and I had to move it yet again. Sometimes they would just die. And at first I was heartbroken that I hadn't been able to anticipate this plant's needs. And then I started to celebrate because I figure, look, it's an empty spot. I can put something I've never planted before there, right? But I think life is a lot like a garden. We have to have a vision before we start planting, or we don't have a garden, we just have a collection of plants, right? So we cultivate a vision of this garden. We cultivate our mental equivalent of the garden we want. And then we plant our seeds and we patiently wait for them to grow and sprout. And sometimes we have to be patient with the weeds that sprout at the same time, because unless we're very experienced and have all the seed packets for reference, when we start pulling out little tiny plants, we might just pull out what we've planted along with the weeds. So sometimes we have to be patient and just let the weeds grow until we can determine what's what. Sometimes we plant something, the label says it's going to be 2 feet high and 3 feet wide, and it turns out to be 4 feet high and 5 feet wide. Sometimes we plant something that was supposed to be short and fat, and it turns out to be tall and skinny. You know, our soil is so wonderful that these plants respond differently than what we expected them to. Patience. We have to have patience with it. Sometimes we'll get an infestation of insects and they'll eat everything in the garden, and we just have to be patient because they didn't get the roots and it's all going to grow back. Sometimes we just have to be patient with all of it, with the whole process. It's in coming from patience, which is not resignation. Not at all. It's patience is different. Coming from the understanding that there is a process in everything. There's a process in everything we do, every change we make. There's a process involved in absolutely everything. Sometimes that will let us stay on purpose. If we remember that my not arriving does not mean the process is not operating. You know, if my not becoming enlightened does not mean the meditation is not acting on me. It is. It's a process. It's a process, all of it. If we can't cultivate that patience with ourselves, what happens is sometimes we turn away in frustration and anger because it's not here yet. And usually we do that just at the moment we're ready to break through. Just at the moment we're ready to have a big expansion of consciousness. We're apt to dig up the seed, see if it's sprouted yet. We're apt to give up on the plant instead of trying a different place for it. But if we give ourselves time to grow through the process, then when we get to where we get, it is ours by right of consciousness, because we've grown it the whole way along. As the reading says, it takes time to integrate awareness with the processes and the events that are happening in our lives. It takes time to develop the consciousness that lets us claim and embody our dream. It's only by right of consciousness, though, by that embodiment, that by becoming our dreams, that we're able to claim them and realize them and move into them and live there. Life every day, the real and relative world, as they put it, all the stuff that comes to us every single day is the perfect process for us to remember and to learn that we need to be patient and we need to be loving and we need to be kind with ourselves if we're ever going to develop that trust in spirit expressing itself through us and as us. So right now, let's just fall into that inner sanctum for a moment. That inner sanctum that is the well, the fountainhead of life. It is the fountainhead of patience. It is the fountainhead of wisdom. It is the fountainhead of dreaming. It is all right in the middle of our being, each one of us. All of that is there. And as we sit in that place of simple, loose, loving, kind awareness, I know for each one of us that we simply let our dream pull us in the direction of our own becoming. We simply let that desire of our deepest heart cultivate in us a place of growth, a place of expansion, a place of open-heartedness as we've never been open-hearted before, a place of patient and loving gentleness as we move toward that dream by becoming that dream, by coming from it, by putting on that consciousness and letting it enlarge all that we do and all that we feel and all that we think and all that we say. As we come from that place of vision and of trust in the universe, that universe that expresses in and as and through each of us every single moment of every single day. It is us. And so we create from that place this vision, this dream, and we put it on, and we become it, and we claim it by right of expanded consciousness. And I know that each one of us has a dream we want to claim, and we do so now. And we put it on now, and we allow it to become by way of process through us now. So I give thanks. I give thanks that each one of us is walking this path in this community together, reflecting back to each other all the progress and all the beauty and all the wonder and the joy of the process itself. I give thanks that we are able to come together and acknowledge our oneness, our beauty, our wisdom. From this place of thanksgiving, I simply release these words knowing that the universe never says no, that my word never comes back to me void, that each one of us is supported and upheld and affirmed by this universe. So I simply let go and let God, and together we acknowledge and anchor it by saying, and so it is.
I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so
Yes, we are. We now have an opportunity to give in support of the work of this center. But more than that, we have an opportunity to simply stop and be grateful for a moment for our very lives and for all the blessings that show up there, for the fact that we have life and that we have home and that we have enough to eat and that we have freedom and that we have joy. And all the good things that we have and all that we are. Gratitude is the only appropriate response to all those gifts. And it is also the response that says, welcome to more of it, to more and more of life. So welcome more good into your life each day, simply by saying thank you. And if you aren't able to give today, or if you give by automatic withdrawal or otherwise, just take a moment as the basket passes you to bless it and to bless the abundance of this community, the prosperity of this community. And let's affirm together. Gratefully I give with an attitude of abundance.
Gratefully I give with an attitude of abundance.
I know that as I give, so do I receive.
I know that as I give, so do I receive.
And so it is.
Now, before you start,
Oh, wait.
before you start, I want you guys to see that every one of these children, including the big ones, has a gold star today. Did a marvelous job in class. Now, Mr. Dan comes back and talks to us and then sings to us. He invented a new way to think about Sunday school. He said, don't say it fast, say it slow. Sundays, cool kids. So, whenever you hear Sunday school, you'll know we're talking about the Sundays, cool kids. Come on, Dan, let's start.
The coolest t-shirt in the world. It said, who runs the world? Girls! Yes! I love it. I love it. Oh, thanks for being here, you guys. Today is the last day to sign up for Cooking with God events, to host them. So there are flyers over on the table, and there are these really cool pins that say Center for Spiritual Living Greater Dayton with our website. So take one of those pens and one of those forms and figure out the name of your event, how many guests you want to accommodate, and a date. And we will take it from there, and beginning next Sunday, we'll be bidding on the events you want to attend. We'll have the bidding sheets out. So please sign up to host an event. And mine may not get in until tomorrow, but I have connections, so. Yeah, we know where I work. Speaking of the pens, pick up some and give them to your friends or leave them places you go. It's name recognition, okay? And they're really good pens too. I have one from the last batch I've had for a year and a half and it's still going strong. So 2 weeks from today, June, is that right? Yeah, June 22nd. That's 2 weeks. Wow. June 22nd, please plan to stay after the service for our picnic in the backyard. There's always plenty of food. We provide the items for the grill, burgers, both real and meat. I don't consider them real. Meat and meatless. Yes, there we go. Meat and meatless and hot dogs and things like that. And bring something to share if you're able. But if not, come anyway because we always have plenty of food and it's always a really fun event. We have games and high silliness. So please plan to join us on June 22nd. And after that, you can join a group from the center at the Swamp Romp Blues Festival at the Phrase. You can check your bulletin for more information, but the Swamp Romp is fun stuff. If you like Zydeco and Cajun music and all that kind of stuff. Lots of fun. Thanks for everyone who supported our booth at the Pride Festival yesterday. It was wonderful. Teresa Napke, Tina was there almost all day with her boyfriend Daryl Lee. Keith Gunderkline and Lisa Schreiber, and I was privileged to officiate the commitment ceremony with the mayor, which was it was beautiful and wonderful. We'll be posting it on Facebook. It was It was really a nice day.
You looked really good on TV last night too when I saw you at 11 o'clock.
I was on TV? How cool is that? Yay!
Cece, I have plenty of pictures, and I'll make sure and email them to you of the ceremony also if
Okay,
you like.
you can check our Facebook page. They'll be all over that thing. It was a lot of fun. We were, out there being part of the change. It was great. You can still adopt a spiritual garden. There are a couple of little places that still need someone to attend to them. Weed it, clean it up, mulch it, do whatever you want with it. There are photos on cards on the table by the bookstore door with the various areas lined out, so you can just fill one in and turn it in, and that would be wonderful. There is one among us who would like a ride to church. If anyone lives in the 2000 area of Patterson, would you please let me know if you could bring this lovely person to church with you? It would be very much appreciated. There is going to be a Foundations class starting on Monday, June 23rd. Foundations is our first accredited class. It's a life changer. Ms. Becky is teaching, facilitating that class. It's really a time to just go deeper into learning about the power of your own mind. And so you can sign up for that on the bulletin board next to the bookstore door. It's a great, great class. I highly recommend it. Finally, I think I've got everything. Oh.
Sunglasses. We got the owner of the jacket.
Okay, there's a pair of sunglasses that were left at the canoe trip picnic yesterday, so if you're missing them.
There's Jennifer's.
Oh, okay, got them. Good. Yay! We have owners for all of our lost stuff now. By the way, if you see our lost and found, the lost and found is lost. So, I'm serious. We used to have a tub that was marked lost and found. It's gone. It's gone.
How do you spell irony?
Exactly. If you see it, let me know.
That's fun.
If there's anything at all that you would like prayer support for, you can see one of the practitioners, the prayer practitioners. They're wearing either a teal or a white shawl. They've studied for a very long time and practiced for a very long time to be able to see the spiritual truth when you can't. So if you would like a 1-minute miracle, just walk up to any one of them and ask for prayer. It's their gift to you after the Sunday service. So let's stand, do our closing affirmation and our closing song, which is Stand. Oh, but first, there is a song of the universe and I sing it.
There is a song of the universe and I sing it.
There is a hymn of praise and I praise it.
There is a hymn of praise and I praise it.
There is a life of joy and I live it.
There is a life of joy and I live it.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Have a fabulous week, everybody.
Thank you. You too.
All right.